Face to face, hand to hand, film to film.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Film to Film. My name is Iñaki Linero. I'm here with my good friend James Shergan. Hey James, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's April's Fools, so I do not have a prank for this.
Yeah.
day.
So you picked this movie because it's April Fool's, right?
Yes. Nah. So yeah, I think we're gonna just jump into it. So today, going with the theme of me picking Chilean films, I decided to pick actually a film from probably my favorite Chilean director. This is Andrés Wood. The film is called Violeta Went to Heaven, or the Spanish would be Violeta se fue a los cielos. It's a 2011 film, and basically the summary which I got from IMDb is that the film is a portrait of a famed Chilean singer and folklorist, Violeta Parra, filled with her musical work, her memories, her loves, and her hopes. All right, well, what's your thought about that summary?
Yeah, that's about right, I guess. I mean, it's a little poetic in a way, but it's not necessarily wrong.
No, I mean, originally I was gonna just write down this is a biopic about a Chilean folklorist and singer, Violeta Parra, and that's it. But
yeah, which is also correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm assuming you did not know who Violeta Parra was. And
no, that's correct.
Also, I kind of picked this movie knowing that you're not a fan of biopics. What was your thought about this film?
Well, first of all, I would say biopics are not my favorite, but they're not as low as children's or teenage films. So I do like them a little bit more than those things. So I thought this film was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It had some good music to just pull you back in. So it kind of had that as like a device that it can do. It's just like, oh, we're going into another song, and it just sort of pulls you in and kind of has like montages of her at different points in different locations. And so, I enjoyed it. I didn't know anything about Violeta Parra, but I thought the acting was good and just generally a pretty all-around well-done film.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting because I knew a lot about her music and about the influence and importance that her music has had in Chilean folk music and actually even Latin American folk music. She was sort of the starting point of a whole music movement called Nueva Canción, which, by the way, none of this is in the movie, but basically folk artists going back into the roots of the countryside, of maybe native communities, pulling that music and putting it in the forefront. And started with her, but it went on to Argentina, Colombia, other South American countries, and all the way up to Cuba. And the movement was the musical movement was also tied in with politics, although that has more to do with the fact that like the more conservative groups are more Eurocentric or America-centric, and this movement was more about going back to the native roots of each country and picking that traditional part of music, along with Spanish, also old traditional peasant Spanish music as well.
And would most Chileans be in a similar boat to you as having been exposed to her? Like, is she like a pretty well-known historical figure in Chile? Or is it just you?
No. She is. Okay. But I mean, but I was more aware of her in that music, that her impact in music for Latin American music, But actually, I'm not aware much about her life. I actually did not know much about her life. So when I watched this movie, to me, it was almost like this movie is really about her as the person, not as her impact. And her as a person, it's also pretty interesting.
It is, yeah. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
But no, yeah, she's very famous. Her most famous song, which has been covered even by Michael Bublé, which is random as fuck, did not show up at all during the film until the credits.
Was it the Michael Bublé version that we heard in the credits?
Of course, no. No, I think I'm assuming they played her version, or maybe it was the one portrayed by the actress Francisca Gavilan, because
Okay.
she sang most of the songs.
And Iñaki, for you, is this a second watch or your first?
Second, my first watch
Okay.
was in 2011 in theaters.
Okay, in Chile.
In
if
Chile,
remember.
yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I was visiting and I watched it then. So yeah, reason I like this film is I think for being a biopic, it doesn't follow your full cliches. I think biopics today are very formulaic. It's like, oh, the beginning, the growth. It usually starts with a moment, like right before a big concert, flashback to the beginning as they grow.
So you clearly have a biopic in mind. Which one are you thinking of right now?
I could say Straight Outta Compton, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
Even what's there's a movie that it makes fun of all of those that is pretty famous. Walk the Line is another one.
Okay. I guess it shows that I'm not too into biopics. That the only one I've seen there is Straight Outta Compton. So.
I see.
Yeah.
Obviously, these are for music biopics, of course.
Right. Rocket Man. Rocket Man.
Rocket Man actually is one of the few that does not follow that. It also does not follow that formula.
Right. Well, I mean, you make a good point there in terms of the biopic structure. It's like usually they like will kind of like have that climactic moment be sort of like the concert, and this one has a far more natural progression of her life. Where it's really like the last half an hour, it's pretty depressing. It's like I kind of thought they would do something like what they did in I don't know if you saw the Anthony Bourdain documentary about his life, and obviously he committed suicide too. But even then, and that one ends in a fairly depressing note too, because of how it ended as well. But it also kind of has this like uplifting last 5 minutes too, where it's like a little bit more of like a celebration of what he stood for and stuff like that. And this one literally almost just ends on the gunshot, so it doesn't really linger on things that are like a little happier.
No, this ends. Well, I mean, it ends abruptly as her life ended.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not sure how accurate the film itself is. I think it tries to portray more her as a character than but because she was sort of a mysterious person in a way, in that like her public persona was a very outgoing, very on your face kind of person from what I heard, but so her suicide was a surprise to many.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, the film kind of starts out with that public persona, and that is the impression you get for maybe the first half of the film, and then it starts to just kind of slowly descend. It's not like a immediate thing, but it is sort of a slow descent into that. So that is interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, the movie definitely, one of the things that I like about and about the movie, and perhaps about her as the character study, is that we're not talking about a person of wealth. Granted, most artists are not, but it is insane how, like, you know, it sort of gives you like flashbacks of her dad, and you know how he's an alcoholic, how he ended up dying of, I'm assuming, alcoholism. They don't really explain it that well, and her mom is not really there, and it's just like the siblings go around and perform, and from there on, it's like that's how they make money. So I mean, and based on the movie, it's like she kind of takes the lead on that. And from the very first scene where you see her like talking to her husband, she's an angry person. She's never portrayed as like she's portrayed as both playful and angry,
ambitious
too. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess, but I mean, like in her interpersonal relationship with people, she's either angry or playful. It's either all or none.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do think it gives a pretty interesting perspective just to the artist's own persona, and it really, you get the real feeling, especially towards the end, of just like her struggling to sort of like find meaning in her work, and like with a dwindling audience and stuff like that, just finding it increasingly depressing. So I think it's kind of interesting just because it kind of shows that like artistic struggle of just like what makes her tick, and that slowly just going away, and how she has like these grand ambitions that just don't plan out here. So even though she's still quite talented at the end, it's just things are not going as she wants them to for her as an artist. So yeah, I do find that part to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. So this film, so the screenplay was by Eliseo Altunaga. However, it's based on a book of the same name as the film, and that was written by Angel Parra, her son. And you know, Violeta Parra and actually all her siblings, as well as kids, nephews, etc., have all continued the tradition of being either poets, musicians, etc., or and all folklorists in one way or another. But it's kind of interesting because today, like, I mean, she is viewed as the base, like one of the bases of Chilean folk music.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, her impact is rather huge for Chilean folklore. So it's always interesting how the film ends with her, as you were mentioning, questioning what like her worth, her value, and it's like her value is huge.
Yeah, I mean, her value obviously ended up being like her legacy is massive. The fact that like she died in 1967 and you were born like 20 years after that, and she's still like a totally iconic figure. So it is interesting the way that she perceived herself and that the way her legacy has gone. So I mean, artists and suicide, it's like a very complicated thing that has happened to a number of people. So but yeah, it is interesting the way the film portrays it too. It's like it's kind of, she talks about her body hurting, but the impression that it really gives is that it's like her artistic pursuits that sort of drive her, are kind of like the final nail in the coffin. Obviously that relationship too with the Swiss guy does not help, but but yeah.
Well, also to me, like with the character, I think it's also, beyond the ambition, is also a level of pride, but a pride tied with her upbringing. And I think that the movie sort of plays it well in that it shows that even as a little girl, she's that type of person. Like her dad is an alcoholic, but he performs at bars, and that's how he makes money. But he also would make money by acting like a monkey and doing silly things. And as a little girl, like they show that scene where he's like acting like a monkey because whatever, and she gets angry and starts hitting people with her guitar as a little girl. So even from there, it shows like she has this level of pride. She doesn't want to be laughed at.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does a good job, if we just circle back to the beginning, like you're saying, of just showing how she is really unusual, and how she has like this sense of like ambition, pride, and she just expects better from people around her, even as like a small child. And I do love, I'm a fan, I think the film for the most part visually is pretty, straightforward. I don't think it's doing anything fancy in terms of like biopic and like crazy shots or anything like that. But I do like the moments at the beginning where we have like the slow motion of her dad drinking, and then we have him giving her the guitar, and then he's in the coffin. And I like the way that it just succinctly just shows you everything you need to know basically about him there. Because you're right, it doesn't really cover him or talk about them. I thought he was originally going to be a lot more of a character, but it kind of just shows, he was an alcoholic and he died because of it, and kind of made a fool of himself a couple times, and it shows you what Violeta thinks of it too, and that's kind of important, and that's really all you need to know. And we're on to the next part about 10 minutes in.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, there are moments where he comes back, but in little things, little hints, but nothing big. Like I guess it was that one clip of him teaching the kids how to whistle. I think that was Dad, right? Because he's a teacher also.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So there's a moment of the whistling, like a bird, and which, it comes back in other moments where, again, these are more hinted, where like, she in that scene where they are performing at that mine, or that with those miners or whatever, right after doing the Christmas performance, which is pretty hilarious, then she starts singing, a song about workers and miners, and that ends up getting a bunch of applause. And her sister asked her, "Hey, where do you learn that song?" And she's like, "Our little birds told me about it." And she always talks about little bird telling her things, and I view it as tying it with her, like how the dad would talk about like the whistling and all that, and maybe still sort of picking some inspiration out of out of her dad.
You don't think it's from Twitter? She just, the birds are Twitter. She just is basing it off some tweets.
Maybe. Oh, I mean,
I don't know what Twitter was like in 1930, but
yeah, that could be too. But yeah, there's that.
But yeah, no. Yeah. I want to make a serious point too. I like that scene too, because it kind of shows her how she's like kind of sticks her foot in, and is able to make it work. Like, she's a very, very competent person, and then she's also just like a savant almost with her music, and she's just like extremely talented and just creative in ways that even her family cannot exactly fathom. I think it's impressive, because I mean the song sounds great too in the way it's portrayed, and it just immediately captivates everyone. And so I think those are some of the most enrapturing moments of the film, when it kind of cuts to the songs and stuff like that. Yeah. And
looks like we might be having a connectivity problem.
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay.
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, I missed you for a second.
Yeah. I finished my point, and then I think maybe it cut off on your end. But yeah, no, I'm still good.
Oh, I don't know if I heard that. It wasn't an and when I stopped hearing you.
Okay. Well, no, I was just saying that her song at the beginning to the miners, where she has to sing sort of the church songs at first, she transitions to that. It's just a very captivating moment that you can see that she has a talent that just immediately draws the attention of everyone, including the miners as well as her own family, who are kind of in awe of her too. She is like the artistic genius, the savant.
Right. Okay. Yes. yeah. So I guess the other thing is I did. What do you think about the framing on how the movie was sort of framed? Like, you have a mix between things happening, but also an interview with her, and the interview at some moments cuts in to sort of put you at these different moments, and I think that's the frame to tell these different parts of her life.
I thought it was for the most part cut together pretty intelligently, just the way that it's framed, and so it can just focus on different aspects throughout her life and just talk about how she does it. I don't know if it's like making any huge like Rashomon type points in terms of like point of view or anything like that, but I did find it to be, it's probably just a little more interesting in terms of just like making the viewer put together this happening at what time in her life, than just kind of doing the cut and dry. This is her story chronologically, start to back. Question for you though. So the interview, at what point is she giving that? Is that like during her phase where she's kind of like in the rural countryside? Like, is that smack dab in the middle there, or is it like before that?
I think the interview itself is not. I probably should have done a little bit more research on this, but I'm pretty sure that the interview is. It's a composite of many different interviews. For example, when she's explaining her last song, the one that she sings right before killing herself, that was actually in real life was a radio interview. And because she had finished the song, but the song was going to be part of a play.
Okay.
But she never made the play because she killed herself. So either way, the interview was probably when she was famous. Because I mean, when she began as a traveling artist, like with her family. I mean, that was literally their subsistence. They all went into different places. Her siblings, her kids, niece, nephews, they all were part of the circus, and that's how they lived. And as she grew, she also started doing. She became interested because they went from town to town, so she became interested on the different music that was played in those towns. And I think after that, she became bigger and she became a radio host. And they have one clip of that, like they have a small clip of that where she's a radio host. And the radio host, she would invite different artists to perform, but yeah, she would pick those and she would research them. And she would also perform her own music, of course. But that's when she started becoming famous. And then, she started doing her tours in Europe and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could see that she's just like a true artist, a creator, in the sense that like a lot of these ideas just stem directly from her, and she will just have an idea of like some sort of like painting or whatever she did in Europe too, and kind of go with it. So like a true artist. My understanding, one of her goals was to just revitalize or reestablish Chilean art in music, right? I mean, that's why she would go to bumblefuck nowhere to meet with, Don Guillermo, a peasant who may or may not even know how to read, because she heard from this other person that, he composed really beautiful songs for funerals for babies. And she was also really interested in that part of the culture. And I mean, we're talking about, this culture of like mixed native and Spanish culture that you had in Chile, or you have, I don't know if people still practice or not certain things. I mean, to me, one of the interesting moments is actually the scene where it's
centered in a radio interview of a woman who's explaining what she does with the corpses of babies, or of babies that die.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is not even musical. It's about and they show you, right, like the baby's corpse with wings, and she's explaining that entire part of the thing of the type of funeral, right, where the idea is that the baby becomes an angel. That's kind of what she did. Like her thing was to bring the countryside, if you will, to Santiago. And I mean, even in the scene with the rich knobs, one person goes and it's like, "Oh, it's so nice to once in a while hear this music from the countryside, or to listen to countryside art," which is what she was doing, and that's kind of what she did. But if you said it that way, it was shitty.
Yeah, she doesn't like the patronizing nature of it. I mean, you could see that, like, even, I mean, it's kind of sprinkled throughout the movie, but it's like the chicken and stuff like that. It's like she does not take kindly to what she perceives as disrespect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she also did not take kind. I mean, it's an interesting view. Again, I'm not sure if all of this like shows like that in real life, but at least it seems like she was. I mean, her music was angry. Like she does. If you actually do listen to like the lyrics, I don't know if you were reading the captions and the lyrics, but many of her music, like her lyrics, were many of them highly critical.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Were either sad, angry. The one song that her most famous song, which is always like the fascinating one, is one that she wrote a year before she killed herself. I think almost to the year. And that song is "Thanks to Life."
Was that song popular in that 1 year before she committed suicide?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
it was. I mean, that's a song that it's just huge.
Okay.
Like
Did they play it in the movie?
in the credits. That's the one song
Oh, in
that
the
they put
credits.
in the
Okay,
credits.
gotcha. Yeah.
Which is, I think it's clever to have that song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting to me, too, to hear that as well, because I don't really know. Obviously, she perceived how her artistry was going,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like the fact that that one song was like literally a year before her suicide indicates that she still had a lot to give as far as like songs and creations and stuff like that. So that is interesting to me.
Yeah, but I think she. So that's the thing. I don't think she wanted fame, because fame she had. I think she just was not. I think, like I mean, the movie's ambiguous on purpose. Like, why did she kill herself? Was it because of love? Was it because of because she could not make. She was incapable of making her relationship with the Swiss dude work? Maybe not. Was it because her project of having a school of music and a hangout place was not really working out anymore? Maybe not. Was it because of like her last thing, like one of the last things she said before killing herself was, I don't feel like what I do matters, or something like that? Maybe not. We don't really know, and the movie is
Right.
ambiguous on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, she also says that her body hurts a lot, too. So it hints at that as well. So, I mean, probably some combination of all those factors.
Mm-hmm. Is it because she felt old? Because I mean, the movie also shows how like she hated being called Mrs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah, and
I mean, the impression I got more than anything, I don't know if you interpreted it the same, was that like the sort of failing experiment of like the artist, I don't know what to call it, commune or whatever. Just that's the one. Like, if you made me name what the film was hinting at the most, that's probably what I would name. But you're right; it is ambiguous, so it's probably incorrect to say it's solely that.
right. And also, I mean, I don't know how much of a failure it was. I mean, I think it was monetarily not doing well. But I mean, even the mayor was like, "Hey, if this is not working out, you can put it down." Like she was famous enough that she could make money, and so it was not about. And also, like that project that she had created the next line of big names, folklorist names, and all of this is before Pinochet. So I have to point that out because many of the famous people who came after her, some of them were killed by the Pinochet government, but she wouldn't have known that because she killed herself before on all of that.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
So she spared herself a Pinochet at least.
Yeah, I mean, she probably would have been killed or
Well,
exiled.
yeah. Well, that's kind of depressing.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, I will say the one thing I did find to be a little bit head scratching in the film was the allure of the Swiss guy, and like how she seems to be very attracted to him for reasons that I have a hard time fathoming.
yeah, well, apparently she was with him on and off.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, I'm sure they put it in the movie for a reason, but I don't know why. I just don't see the attraction. But what do I know?
Well, I think that's again that's part of the the mystery, right? Like I don't. So I don't think. I think like her death is sort of a mystery. It's unknown why she did it. It's like it's just not clear. It's not. It's not clear why she did many of her many of the things that she did is. And I mean, one of those is her love, her love interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's maybe. I mean, maybe they upped the importance of him, but I mean, she was. What's clear is that she lived with him while she was in Europe in her second trip.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would just say, and maybe this is more a commentary on the filmmaking, is the film did a great job of showing the allure of her artistry and her music.
Mm-hmm.
It did not do the same thing with the Swiss gentleman. I was like, I just don't get it, but it's fine. I mean, I guess maybe that's part of it. You're not supposed to get inside her head totally.
Yeah. I mean, they did a good job at picking a much better looking guy than the real man. The real man was actually even uglier.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked up the picture and I was like, oh, yeah, this. Because I did think it was like, oh man, that guy's kind of ugly. And then you look at the real man and you're like, oh, no. Okay. they picked a better looking man. I mean,
he didn't even seem to be a very good musician.
Well, he was a member of a band. He played the pan flute.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like something that's going to get him, like, disowned by his dad or something.
I mean, I think my theory is that he made her feel young. I mean, the guy was much younger than she was.
Fair.
So maybe it's that. I mean, like, some of her songs that she would play would be... I mean, this is outside the movie, of course. But, one of her famous songs that she wrote when she was in, her 40s is to become 17 again. I think she... From the film, one thing you get... one thing that you do get is that she had to grow up way too young. Yeah, it doesn't seem like she really had a childhood. I mean, the movie doesn't show you much of a childhood after her dad died.
Yeah.
In fact, her dad dies. She's an adult.
Yeah. And she's already got a husband, basically.
She already has a husband. She already has kids. She already is in charge of the business, the circus business, the music circus business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think perhaps the Swiss guy made her feel young, made her feel like she could do, I don't know, just, yeah, made her feel young. Who knows? Also, it's the only guy who seems to stand up to her.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
Because the husband that they show in the movie, that guy was like, no, we're not going to be able to unload because they're not going to unload, and she just yells at him.
Yeah, she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I mean, you could tell that she just didn't totally respect him. So, I mean,
well, yeah. So it's a good question. I was not too bothered by it because I don't know. It's hard to tell. So on the other thing, I guess that I kind of liked was how the film would sometimes soak up the scenery in different areas. I mean, this film does not like. I don't know if she lived in Santiago, but I'm pretty sure she lived in Santiago probably most of her life, yet the film never shows the city. And it's instead focused always on the countryside, always, even in her tent, it's kind of out of the way. And the only times you see a city is outside of Chile.
Yeah, in Europe mostly.
Yeah.
That is kind of interesting. I mean, I would have thought that they would have tried to sneak in one scene in Santiago or something like that. I mean, it's always interesting on these biopics too, is like what you choose to show, because you're like literally putting someone's whole life into like basically 2 hours or under 2 hours in this case. Mm-hmm. And that's just really hard to do. It's like a book is hard enough to do, and that's much, much longer, and you could cover much more material. Mm-hmm. So it is an interesting choice to not cover Chile, and I wonder if maybe that it's because like they just didn't have anything to add there beyond like kind of what is common knowledge for Chileans, or it's just kind of like or they thought it'd just be more interesting showing the rise in Europe.
So that's the part. I didn't say it doesn't cover Chile. It covers Chile, just not Santiago.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Santiago.
And I think that's so. I think that's a point of the film. I think it's on purpose. And perhaps this is more. Perhaps I'm reading more into it, and this is definitely more. This is something that it's more of a subject matter among Chileans. But Santiago, being the biggest city, is the only thing that gets portrayed in Chilean media and everything. And folks from outside Santiago are like, hey, Chile is not just Santiago. And this film, and in real life, that's kind of what she did herself. She was not from Santiago, and she brought music from outside Santiago into the Chilean pop culture. And perhaps the film wanted to highlight that, hey, she was all about not Santiago. It was all about all the countrysides, the other regions. And
maybe they can also sort of portray that patronizing attitude towards it. It's like, oh, cool, let's bring the rural countryside towards us when she goes to Europe. And in that sense, like having Santiago would have maybe a very similar emotional reaction to the European scenes in that same way.
Well, so the one scene where the scene where she's at that like wealthy area place singing,
was that the Louvre or was that somewhere else?
No, that was Santiago. So that's the one scene in Santiago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, all those were Chileans. So that's why when they were introducing her, when she was performing, they were like, oh, she's very famous. She's been in Europe. She's been in Louvre. And now she's going to sing with us here. And it's important to have that because she had to first become famous outside of Chile in order to be performed at the high society in Chile. And even then, she wasn't allowed to eat with the guests. She had to eat in the kitchen.
Yeah, and she was just like, fuck this.
Yeah. So that's more of a criticism of Chilean society, especially Chilean high society, where she got more respect in Europe by having her art in the Louvre, or portraying in front of a full concert hall in Poland that she did in Chile. Like, her fame in Chile actually was thanks to her success outside of Chile. In the high society, in the wealthy groups, because the wealthy group listened to American stuff, European stuff. They didn't care about Chilean folk music. So yeah, it's a criticism to them. And also you got to remember, she is part native. And racism in Chile that's part of it.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but yeah, that entire scene is in Chile. That was in Chile.
I don't know if I realized that.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense because all of that is for you for a foreign language, whether it was French.
Yeah, I mean, I should have been able to tell French and Spanish apart, but I don't speak either language. And they, in my defense, they were cross-cutting a lot to France at the time. So
yeah, no, for sure. I think the only performance in France that they show is the one at that
chicken.
The restaurant with chicken. Mm-hmm. So speaking of that, so maybe I want to jump a little bit into some scenes, unless you have any other broad concepts.
No, not really.
So we kind of talked a little bit about the first scene with our performance at the mine. I don't think we have to talk more about that one, unless you have anything to add.
No. I mean, I did really like that scene, but I think I talked about everything already.
Yeah, I mean,
I had to say.
I guess the one thing I sort of enjoyed was how they could improvise at last minute to make the thing Christian themed, and having the husband be Jesus.
Yeah. He was kind of a funny looking Jesus, but yeah. Yeah. No, I thought it was clever. I thought that scene was pretty well done, just as a whole.
Yeah. So with the other scene, and I guess because this movie cross-cuts so much, I really liked the montage, if you will, of her in Poland while her child dies in Chile.
It's pretty powerful. I mean, especially after we just come from her going to the other artist about child death and stuff like that. I thought that was well done too. In her music in Poland, I mean, you kind of have the same. You see how the impact of it is more than just speaking to the sort of like rural miners or whatever. It's like it's a lot more broad. It can span across cultures and nations and stuff like that. So I thought that was quite interesting and well done.
Yeah. Also, it shows you a little bit of how she was as a mother. She was similar to perhaps her upbringing, where Angel, her son, had to really take care of the kids. And ending up with, a child dying.
Yeah, it's true.
The other scene was the chicken, the restaurant with the chicken. and how random that was.
I mean, it was pretty random in some ways. I mean, for the most part, whenever she sings, it seems like there's just general reverence for everything musically, and that's like one of the few exceptions in the film. So it does come across as random, and I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of shows her general hard-headedness still when it comes to this sort of thing. But
Yeah, and how outspoken she was in the. To just basically tell them right there, it's like, hey, you paid for this.
yeah,
So if you're planning to play around with a cock, then I'll go.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is you can also kind of see some of the audience members nodding like they agree with her too. So it doesn't portray her as like, oh, she's like the total crazy one here.
No, not at all. I mean, it's kind of interesting because it happens in real life. Like sometimes you go to a bar because there's a performance or there's an open mic, and you have. I remember in undergrad, like one would go to an open mic, and you have a bunch of bros making noise, and if someone shut them up, you'd be like, oh yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, even like a movie or something like that, it's like you occasionally run into some jackass just like on their phone the whole time or making noise together or like giggling together. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of akin to that behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like before there were phones, there were cocks in restaurants.
I guess so. At least in Europe, like that's
Yeah.
Don't forget to bring your cock to a restaurant. Then the other one was I like sort of the Louvre sequence. I thought I did not know about this in real life. I personally didn't know, and I thought it was just very fascinating how it's at least portrayed of her just like fucking doing art for no reason, and then boyfriend is like, "Hey, where the fuck are we gonna put this?" And she's like, "I don't know, sell them." It's like, where? Louvre.
Yeah, well, it kind of just shows like her unbridled ambition and vision. I mean, the fact that she did it too.
Yeah, she did it. And I like afterwards, like how they actually showed real old footage mixed with the new. They could have done a better job of making the new one look grainier because the old footage is very grainy, and the new looks a little bit cleaner.
True.
And then I guess the speaking, I guess this film has a lot of this kind of weird montage, and then there's the one where she's playing at her song at the high society, and they would interlace it with her playing at the tent, and also her project at the tent too. All of that going into one thing, and you could tell that.
Yeah, I mean, this film had like just such a big advantage, just being able to rely on her music, that it's just like never boring when like every 15 minutes you could just be like, all right, we're gonna do another song, and all of her songs are really good. So I mean, it really does help to kind of keep the movie just constantly interesting, to have just strong music backing it up.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, even I think it does a good job at in some of these montages, like the one where she's playing at the high society and then the tent. Does a good job at showing how at the high society no one is really paying attention to her, and she's not really that into it. In fact, the music itself doesn't sound as good. And then the clips when she's at the tent, the music sounds much better. Everyone is into it. Even though the place is much poorer in conditions, it's so much more welcoming. And I think that, I don't know, I like that montage. I mean, and speaking of montage, I love the last one, right before she kills herself.
The one with Rain?
Yeah, where it's her going to explains the last song she's gonna play at that TV interview. Starts playing it, and then she's at the empty tent playing it, but then the tent is full of people, and if you pay attention, the people who are in the tent are all the characters throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which means they're not real.
Yeah.
And that song itself is also like a very like hard, like, I don't know, just strong song that it does really, it shows kind of her desperation. It does a good job again as like, I think the movie portrays her as someone who may or may not have some sort of mental disorder.
Yeah, it's certainly possible.
And that's, at least that scene to me sort of fully like grabs that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's like easily the darkest and the moodiest of the songs she played, and it is suitable for the end. And I kind of, like, as I said earlier, I kind of expected the film to, like, kind of pick back up and end on a slightly more uplifting note. But no, it didn't happen. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like one of your last images of the thing is, like, her tent basically falling apart, having to, like, do water everywhere. Basically no one in attendance except, like, for the imaginary characters from her life. Mm-hmm. And just her depressed as all hell.
Yeah. And the cross-cutting with Hawk killing a chicken.
Oh, yeah. That was also interesting. It worked.
Yeah. I mean, that's what her song is about. Or at least that's how she explained it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That all love destroys. It doesn't always build. The hawk is the man, and the woman is the chicken, and the woman has to suffer resisting the consequences of the claws of the hawk. And then she makes a crazy, weird tie with capitalism. And by the way, all of that was a real thing, she said.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because, yeah, she was explaining that song like a week before she killed herself. The lyrics of that song do not say any of that, but that's her explanation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think the movie kind of goes with that. Because, I mean, the chicken and the hawk are introduced from the beginning.
Yeah. No, it did. They kept referencing them. And I don't know. I kind of check out on, like, the metaphorical stuff sometimes.
Oh.
but yeah, I mean, I did remember, I was like, chicken and hawk. I don't remember who's who, but
yeah.
I saw it at the end, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was going based on her words. But, yeah. Anything else that, caught your attention?
Let's see. No, I think that's it. I think I said most of what I have in my notes here. Yeah, I mean, good performance, too, by the lead. I thought she was quite good.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of putting herself into the role.
I mean, she sold it to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, the film doesn't work with a weaker performance, so...
Also, it works that she knows how to sing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's not much more. I mean, the movie hints a little bit at her communist tendencies, but even then, it's not. Like, it doesn't really linger on it.
Right, and it seems like she was an artist first. I mean, obviously, she seemed to have somewhat left political leanings, but... or at least was friends with or associated with people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it for the most part keeps the focus on her musical career and her life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is. I'm surprised this movie did not do well. Well, actually, it won something in the U.S., but I'm surprised that it didn't do that well in comparison to
it. Is she well known in Latin America, outside of Chile?
Yeah, again, that's
okay.
Remember, she's been covered by like an American, like 2 Americans now. Yeah, she's well known in Latin America, but again, it is within the perhaps the folks who are more interested in folk music.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like the movie did win. It was awarded the World Cinema Jury Prize at the 2012 Sundance Festival.
Okay.
But but I'm still surprised that it didn't. I mean, ignoring the person, because I mean, you didn't know anything about the person, which is actually one of the reasons why I picked it. Because I was curious what you would someone who doesn't know anything about the person would think about it.
I mean, it sounds like for the most part it worked. There's probably at least a handful of things that like probably would be helpful to know a little bit more about the artist, but for the most part it's like I think the biopic does a decent job of explaining what it finds to be important about her life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, would you be more interested now after watching this to seek out her music, or not your not
Maybe.
your type?
I mean, I don't not listen to folk music, so I mean, I am slightly curious. I hadn't considered that, but maybe. I mean, I just watched the film yesterday, so it's still pretty fresh in memory.
Mm-hmm.
Her music is pretty captivating.
Yeah, probably more helpful if you understood the lyrics.
I mean, I had subtitles. I should have read them.
Oh, that's true.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I was kind of zoning out on reading the exact lyrics.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm pretty sure that the subtitles didn't catch everything.
I mean, I was getting like the tone of it, so like the last song, I got that was pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I don't know that I know the individual lyrics.
Yeah, makes sense. Anyways, so who won?
I'll give it to. The correct answer is probably to give it to Violeta Parra, but I'll give it to someone that actually made the film. I'll give it to the lead actress, who is Francesca Gavilan.
Yeah, Francisca Gavilan.
Yeah, Francisca Gavilan. Yeah, I thought she did a great job and a good job just portraying a legendary figure from what it sounds like.
Yeah. She is really good, but I'm gonna give it to the director just because I think, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of biopics, and I think this movie did a good job at showing at keeping you interested without being cliche.
Is this your favorite music biopic?
I don't know. I mean, I also haven't seen that many. Like, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I like it more than Bohemian Rhapsody, even though Bohemian Rhapsody has amazing music because I love Queen, and I like Queen more than I like Violeta Parra's music goes. But I like this movie as a movie more than Bohemian Rhapsody. I also like it more than Walk the Line or Straight Outta Compton. Because again,
Okay.
all of those to me are like pretty cliche. But if we were to be comparing it with the Elton John one,
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure. That one's also
You
really
like
good.
You like those both. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's again. I guess I've watched a lot of biopics, and I like it when they're different.
Uh-huh. Makes sense.
And although this is more traditional than the Elton John, because the Elton John biopic is it's a fucking musical itself.
Okay.
I perhaps I like this one more because it's a little bit more traditional, but while still straying from, you know, your classic child up, fame, down, up, question mark.
Yeah, that is the classic rise and fall. I mean, for biopics as well as just, I mean, it's classics, just storyline for fiction as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is like, I mean, technically because it also in almost every biopic, they even do a character arc with the hero's journey, which this one doesn't. I don't think she learns anything in this movie.
No, not really.
It's like it's truly about you learning about her and not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she doesn't. Yeah. I don't know that she changes a whole lot throughout the film. I mean, starting from we see her as a child to pretty much her last day. So.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, she died. She died the way based on the movie. She died because she was done.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a scene where she tells her daughter. Her daughter was like, "Mom," I think she said something suicidal, and her mom was like, slaps her, and is like, "You don't warn about those things. You either do it or you don't."
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty close to the end, too, if I remember right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like that about the film, that it is kind of unsentimental about her portrayal, in a way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
No, anyways, what do you rate this?
7.5.
Okay. I give it an 8,
Yeah.
8.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. Any souvenirs?
Oh, shit. I'll take some of those paintings.
Yeah. The one worth either a house or a couple of beans.
I'll take the one that she basically browbeat the mayor over.
Yeah. Shit, I asked and I didn't even think about it. I'll probably take one of her guitars.
You don't want to take the Swiss guy's flute?
The pan flute? No, it's full of his spit.
I know. Lovely. He's a beautiful man.
All right. Well, on that note, hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope people will look up Violeta Went to Heaven. I think this is an underrated Chilean film. So,
Yeah. No, I'd say it's just about as good as anything I've seen from Chile in the past decade. Not that I've seen a lot, but I've seen what you've told me to watch, so I've seen a handful.
except for the random movies that we watch at SIF, like Mirage Man.
Yeah. This one edges out Mirage Man, you know.
I do want to rewatch that
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah, someday. Hey, I mean, eventually you're going to run out of Chilean films, so it might be time to go back to Mirage Man.
It had some good martial arts, man. Stupid ass plot, but some good martial arts.
I have a feeling that's a film that I will enjoy even more the second time around, but what do I know?
All right. Anyways, on that note, if people have any questions, comments, they want us to talk about anything, you can email us at zafilmtofilm@gmail.com. That is with the number 2 as opposed to TO. Or you can tweet us at zafilmtofilm. And again, we also have a YouTube channel now, right?
Yep. Yeah. ZA Film to Film. Surprise, surprise.
And there's a number 2 on that one too.
Indeed.
So there you go. You can go on either of those things. Leave comments, questions, concerns.
Yeah.
All right. Ciao.
Adios.